Tonight you take your usual after-dinner walk, and your blood sugar spikes anyway. Everyone insists a walk after dinner brings blood sugar right back down. The logic sounds simple. Eat, sugar rises, walking lowers it again. For many people, that same walk pushes blood sugar up instead. Most walkers never realize this backward spike is happening to them. This isn't about quitting your walk, it's about fixing how you do it. If you want your body explained this clearly, hit subscribe. The findings come from top journals: Clinical Endocrinology, Diabetes Care, The Lancet. A physician researcher has studied how daily habits interact with body systems for years. The body responds to precise signals, not simple one-size-fits-all rules. The post-dinner walk turns out to be a perfect example of that. Mechanism 1, hepatic glucose production, the liver releasing stored sugar into blood. Here is where it gets surprising. Exercise itself can trigger the liver to release sugar. It sounds backwards, I know, but the body has a built-in emergency fuel system. It happens with higher intensity walking, the kind where you move with purpose, arms swinging, maybe a little breathless. That's the kind that can backfire. Brisk walking activates the sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight alarm. It thinks you're in danger and need energy fast. That alarm sends a signal straight to the liver. It says, "Emergency, we need fuel. Release the glucose now." The liver listens. The liver obligingly dumps glycogen into the bloodstream. Glycogen is stored sugar. It pours out to fuel your muscles for the perceived emergency. If your muscles are highly insulin sensitive and working hard, they burn that sugar quickly. Blood sugar stays stable or drops. That's the ideal scenario. But many adults carry some degree of mild insulin resistance. Even if you feel fine, your cells may not respond to insulin as well as they used to. Resistant muscles cannot pull glucose in fast enough. The liver is releasing sugar faster than the muscles can burn it. A mismatch develops. The result is clear. Your blood sugar actually goes up during and right after your walk. Instead of lowering it, the walk is raising it. If you use a continuous glucose monitor, you might look at the screen after your evening stroll and feel confused. You just walked. Why is the number higher? Researchers call this the liver overdrive effect. It's the first major reason why walking after dinner doesn't always work the way people expect. Now, the second mechanism works on a different timeline. It happens after the walk ends, not during. And it can be just as confusing. This brings us to the second mechanism. It's called the post-exercise rebound effect, documented in research from applied physiology, nutrition, and metabolism. Here's how it works. During movement, your muscles have a remarkable ability. They pull glucose straight out of your blood without needing insulin to do the heavy lifting. This happens through a transporter protein called GLUT4. Think of GLUT4 as a side door that your muscle cells open up during exercise. That side door lets sugar in directly, bypassing the usual insulin-dependent pathway. Pretty amazing, isn't it? This is actually one of the reasons exercise is so powerful for blood sugar management. That side door works beautifully while you're moving. But here's the catch. The moment you sit down on your couch after your walk, that side door closes. GL-LUT4 translocation shuts off almost immediately once movement stops. That side door doesn't stay open long. Meanwhile, your meal is still being digested. Depending on what you ate, that can take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. Sugar from that meal keeps entering your bloodstream, but now your muscles are no longer helping to absorb it. So all that sugar has nowhere to go except to build up in the blood. This creates what researchers call a secondary spike, and this secondary spike can sometimes be sharper than the initial post-meal rise. It often hits later in the evening when you're sitting quietly or even beginning to drift towards sleep. Recent research from 2025 shows this double peak pattern clearly on continuous glucose monitors. It's one of the most confusing things people encounter when they first start tracking their glucose. This double peak pattern shows up clearly on continuous glucose monitor data, and it is one of the most confusing things people encounter when they first start tracking their glucose. Let me just stop for a moment and check in. I know some of this likely contradicts things you have believed for a long time, but understanding these mechanisms is what gives you the power to actually use exercise correctly. None of this means your past efforts were wrong or wasted. You were following advice that was incomplete, and now you have the full picture. A third mechanism involves timing and a hormone that most people associate with stress but rarely connect to their blood sugar at night. That hormone is cortisol, and it is rarely connected to nighttime blood sugar by most people. Research published in Harvard Health Publishing and supported by data from the Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology has shown that when you exercise later in the evening, particularly close to your bedtime, you trigger a rise in cortisol and adrenaline. Exercising close to bedtime raises both cortisol and adrenaline, your primary stress hormones. And there is one overnight process this disrupts that most people never expect: your body's natural repair and regulation during sleep. Cortisol is a direct antagonist to insulin. It makes your cells more resistant to insulin signal. While insulin is trying to tell your fat cells and muscle cells to open up and absorb glucose, cortisol is essentially jamming that signal. The result is that a late night walk can leave your blood sugar elevated throughout the first half of your sleep. Nighttime is when your body does its most important repair work. Your liver, your muscles, your brain all use the quiet hours to restore and balance hormones. It is not a passive process, but when you exercise late and spike cortisol, that repair window gets disrupted. Cortisol tells your body to stay alert, not to rest. Overnight glucose stays high and the repair work gets pushed aside. This is the circadian timing problem. When you move matters just as much as whether you move. Your body's internal clock expects activity earlier, rest later. Pushing against that clock comes with a metabolic cost. 3 factors now stand revealed: intensity, timing, and duration. Each one is a lever that can either help or hurt your nightly glucose. Understanding them is the key to making your walk work for you. And here is the surprise: each factor alone can turn a helpful walk into a metabolic stressor. You do not need all 3 to go wrong. Just one mistake can spike your blood sugar. Too much intensity triggers emergency liver glucose release. Your liver dumps stored sugar to fuel your muscles. But if your muscles cannot burn it fast enough, that sugar stays in your blood. Stopping too early while digestion continues brings the GLUT4 rebound spike. Your muscles stop pulling glucose the moment you sit down, but your meal is still releasing sugar. That is the double peak pattern on your CGM. Walking too late triggers a cortisol surge that fights insulin. Cortisol jams the signal that tells your cells to open up for glucose, so even a gentle late walk can leave your blood sugar higher through the night. Here is a useful idea I call the lactate trap. When you walk so fast that you cannot hold a conversation, your muscles start making lactic acid, and that lactic acid gets turned back into glucose by your liver. Walking too fast to hold a conversation crosses the anaerobic threshold. That is the point where your muscles cannot get enough oxygen from your blood. They switch to a backup fuel system that produces lactate. Past that threshold, your muscles start producing lactic acid as a byproduct. It is not a waste product exactly, it is a signal. Your body is saying, "We are working hard and we need more fuel right now." And here is the twist. Your liver sees that lactic acid and says, "I can work with this." It converts the lactic acid back into glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. So you are making more blood sugar by walking too hard. That process is called gluconeogenesis, literally making new sugar from the lactate your muscles produce. So walking too hard can create more blood sugar, not less. Exactly the opposite of what you intended. The body isn't broken here, it's doing exactly what it evolved to do: keep your muscles fueled during exertion. In a post-dinner state, though, that instinct works against you. Your liver is flooding a system that's already digesting a meal. A second key idea comes from research published in Diabetes Care. It's what I call the 30-minute window. The most effective time to walk is within 30 minutes after eating. Not immediately, but soon. That's when blood sugar is rising but hasn't peaked yet, a sweet spot for your muscles to absorb it. Walking then keeps GLUT4 transporters active during the sugar's peak supply, so your muscles grab the glucose as it arrives. Wait 90 minutes, and you likely miss the primary spike entirely. The glucose has already come and gone. By then, glucose has already peaked and started falling on its own. The window for muscle absorption has closed. Walking at 90 minutes. And stopping can still trigger a double peak. Confusing but predictable once you know the mechanism. It looks like the walk made things worse, but the timing was misaligned, not the walking itself. 30 minutes after your last bite, not 90, is the sweet spot the research points to for timing your walk. Now, not everybody responds the same way to a post-dinner walk, and that's an important caveat to understand. Younger people or those with excellent insulin sensitivity often don't experience these blood sugar spikes at all after a walk. But if you're in your 40s, 50s, or beyond, these mechanisms matter more to your nightly glucose picture. If your energy after meals feels unpredictable, or you've seen odd glucose readings that don't match your effort, this likely applies to you. Researchers are only beginning to map this individual variation in how people respond to post-meal exercise. Recent data from 2025 is proving especially useful for understanding these personal differences in glucose response. And there's one number your doctor probably hasn't checked. More on that soon. So what should you actually do differently tonight? Starting with your very next meal. Recommendation 1. Keep the walking intensity low. This is not a training session, it's a gentle stroll. The goal is gentle stimulation of GLUT4 uptake, not exertion or breathlessness. Aim for a pace where you can hold a full conversation easily, without any breathlessness. Your breathing should stay easy throughout, pleasantly active, never labored. Think of it as a slow stroll, not a purposeful power walk. You should feel like you're enjoying the evening, not chasing a fitness goal. Recommendation 2. Time your walk within 30 minutes of your last bite. Give yourself 5 to 10 minutes first to let digestion settle, but don't wait a full hour before heading out the door. Starting earlier works with your natural glucose curve, not against it. Recommendation 3. Keep the walk short, just 15 to 20 minutes. That's enough time to meaningfully engage your GLUT4 transporters. Going past 30 minutes late in the day risks needless cortisol elevation. A 20-minute gentle stroll and a 45-minute power walk are very different evenings. In the evening, more walking is genuinely not better. If this explanation is helping you see the real picture, subscribing is a simple way to support more videos like this one. Recommendation 4. Watch your timing relative to bedtime. This is where many people unknowingly trigger a cortisol surge that lasts into the night. If you go to bed at 10:30, aim to finish any moderate or brisk activity by 9 o'clock, ideally even earlier. That 1.5 hour gap gives your cortisol levels enough time to fall back down to their natural nighttime low. It also lets your nervous system shift from fight or flight mode into rest and digest, the parasympathetic state that supports deep sleep. Your insulin sensitivity needs that recovery window before you spend 8 hours lying flat, when your muscles are inactive and glucose uptake slows. Here's how one physician applies this framework in real life. Not as a rigid rule, but as a gentle rhythm that works with the body's natural timing. Finish dinner, then rest for about 15 minutes with a cup of herbal tea. Let your digestive system begin its work before you move. Let digestion settle before heading out the door. That short pause ensures your body is ready to absorb the benefits of movement. Then take a genuinely slow walk, often together with a spouse or friend. The pace should feel like an evening stroll, not a fitness goal. 15 to 20 minutes is enough, nothing rushed or forced. That's the sweet spot for engaging GLUT4 without triggering a cortisol response. Coming home relaxed means GLUT4 has already done its quiet work, and your body is ready for rest, not a fight. By the time you finish your walk, your cortisol has already started to fall. You return home not wired but relaxed. Your body knows it's time to wind down, not fight or flee. This framework is not a rigid prescription. You know your own body better than any study. Some nights you might walk a few minutes longer, some nights shorter. The key is understanding the principles, not following a rule book. So here is the core framework. Keep intensity low. Time your walk early after eating. Keep duration moderate, and respect a sleep-aware cutoff. That is the sweet spot. That exact combination, gentle, early, short, and not too close to bed, is what the current research from Diabetes Care and The Lancet actually supports. Not more, not less. Together, these steps transform a habit that might have been backfiring into a genuine metabolic tool. Your walk stops being a stressor and starts being a helper. Food and movement interact constantly, not just after dinner, but all day long, to protect your long-term metabolic health. Every meal and every step is a conversation between your gut and your muscles. Visual explanations of how exercise affects glucose in real time can deepen this understanding. Seeing the liver's glucose release on a graph makes the mechanism click in a way words alone cannot. Knowing why your liver releases glucose during movement reshapes how you think about every workout, not just your post-dinner stroll. It is not your enemy, it is your body doing exactly what it evolved to do. For those who want to explore food timing further, there is a deeper resource, Dr. Robert Lustig's Visual Guide to How Exercise Affects Glucose. It is linked in the description below. Anti-inflammatory eating and specific food choices, like adding more fiber, healthy fats, and timing your carbohydrates, can also support your glucose metabolism alongside movement. Many people who have applied these principles report real improvements in their metabolic numbers. Not dramatic overnight changes, but steady, meaningful shifts that show up on their lab work and their CGM readings. So here's the bottom line on the post-dinner walk debate. It is not the enemy, but it must be done with the right intensity, at the right time, for the right duration. Your body is not broken. It is waiting for you to work with it. So, the post-dinner walk itself was never truly the enemy. It was always about how you were doing it. Movement after eating remains one of the most powerful blood sugar tools available. That hasn't changed. But the body doesn't simply respond to effort alone. It responds to the right kind of effort. It responds to the right stimulus at the right time with the right intensity. That's the real formula. Brisk walking can trigger an unwanted liver glucose dump. Your liver releases stored sugar, and that can raise your blood sugar instead of lowering it. Stopping too early while digestion continues can cause a secondary spike. The sugar from your meal keeps entering your bloodstream, but your muscles are no longer absorbing it. Walking too late can flood the system with cortisol right before sleep. That stress hormone makes your cells resist insulin, keeping blood sugar high through the night. None of these outcomes were ever really anyone's fault. You were following advice that made sense on the surface. Most people were simply following advice that left out key details about timing, intensity, and the liver's role. Now you know the missing pieces. Now the full mechanism behind that advice is finally clear, and understanding it gives you the power to use movement in a way that actually works. Tonight, try narrowing the window. Walk within 30 minutes of finishing your meal, not an hour later. That's the sweet spot the research points to. Keep the pace slow and keep the walk short. 15 to 20 minutes at a gentle stroll is enough. More is not better at this hour. Then simply notice how differently your body responds. Not by checking a monitor every 5 minutes, but by paying gentle attention to how you feel as you settle into the evening. Your body was never working against you in the first place. The liver that released glucose during a brisk walk, the GLUT4 transporters that closed when you sat down, the cortisol that rose with late exercise. Each one was doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's been waiting for the right kind of movement all along. Not no movement, not maximum movement, but movement that respects the timing, the intensity, and the duration your body actually needs after a meal. This explanation is educational only, not personalized medical advice. Every body is different, and what works for one person may not be right for another, especially if you have existing health conditions. Always talk with your own doctor before changing exercise or eating habits. A quick conversation can rule out things like medication interactions or underlying conditions that might change how these recommendations apply to you. If unusual symptoms appear alongside blood sugar swings, sudden dizziness, confusion, sweating that doesn't match activity, or fainting, seek medical care. These can signal something that needs professional evaluation, not just a walk adjustment. Glucose monitor users often recognize these exact patterns once they know the cause. That confusing evening spike that seemed to come from nowhere, or the double peak that made no sense. Now you see the liver overdrive in the GLUT4 window clearly. Sharing your own monitor experience in the comments helps other viewers too. When you describe what you saw in your CGM and what you changed, it becomes real data for someone else trying to understand their own numbers. Real double peak or spike stories from readers are genuinely worth reading. Researchers at the Journal of Applied Physiology have documented hundreds of such cases, and seeing how others solve the timing puzzle can spark your own insight. Every evening walk is now a chance to apply this understanding, not as a chore, not as a test, but as a gentle experiment where you choose the slow pace, the early window, and the short duration that work with your body's natural rhythms. Small timing changes tonight can shift a whole night's blood sugar pattern. Walking 20 minutes after dinner instead of 90, keeping it slow instead of brisk, finishing before 9 instead of at 10, that's all it takes to flip the effect. A habit millions already practice needed only 3 small corrections. Lower intensity, earlier timing, shorter duration. That's it. No dramatic overhaul, no expensive equipment, no supplements, just walking, done a little more wisely. The entire fix is simple. Lower the intensity, move the timing earlier, and keep the duration shorter. Your body evolved to protect you during movement, not to fight you. The liver's glucose release is an ancient survival reflex, not a flaw, so don't abandon the walk. Just walk it on your body's own clock. Gentle, early, and short enough to work with your metabolism, not against it. That one popular evening habit, the post-dinner walk, can finally work exactly as intended, a gentle tool for stable blood sugar, not a hidden stressor. If you want more clear explanations of what's really happening inside your body, without the hype, hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Tonight's slow, well-timed walk turns quiet confusion into calm, confident control. Your body was never the problem. Now you know how to work with it.